June 15th, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen from USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And last night we had another cup and a familiar team raising it, the mighty and powerful Toronto. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's a familiar team, but they haven't won it ever before. That was the funny thing. I
did not realize this is the first time. I know they've been really good for a long time though. So that was okay.
Yeah, they've been really good for a long time and very consistent, but they've never been. Somebody called them the Washington Capitals of the AHL because
about the Toronto Marlies. So
and it's funny because 6 years ago around this time I was on the ice at Ricoh Coliseum for the final of the final game of the Calder Cup, but it was Norfolk and not Toronto, and it was clearly a different feel and a different vibe in the building because Norfolk won a game where in double overtime where the puck went off a stanchion and into the empty net, so it was sort of a bummer for the fans. But 9,000 fans at Ricoh Coliseum. It was not a real close game. It was 6-1 final, but it was close. It was close early, obviously, but yeah, I mean, and you have to say it's an encouraging thing for the Maple Leaf organization, and a lot of people got a kick out of Kyle Dubas celebrating with the Calder Cup. I mean, he was very, very into it, and I thought it was pretty cool. They passed around the cup to the players and then to Sheldon Keefe, and he passed it to Kyle Dubas, and Kyle Dubas was very psyched that this team won. And it's sort of a stamp on or a blueprint of what I think he's going to try to do with the Leafs in terms of bringing in some younger players, and some of the players who were very key to their victory last night and through the playoffs are going to be part of the Leaf organization going forward. So it was a joyous and jubilant time at Ricoh Coliseum last night.
Yeah, I caught the last few minutes. There was definite excitement. Happy. My one question is, because people were asking me, was Bracco benched or is he injured?
No, Bracco was basically the 13th forward for the entire playoffs. They stuck with the same lineup. There was never any injury. I think he played 3 or 4 games in the playoffs. But
how does that help development? That's my big question.
I
like Ben Smith and guys who are 35 years old.
Well, the funny
Greening, like, how does that help development? Sorry.
Well, the funny thing is, Russ, is probably about an hour and a half after the game, after they were skating around the ice with the Calder Cup, Ben Smith signed a 3-year contract with the team in Germany. So they brought in veterans and Bracco did play early in the playoffs, but once Andreas Janssen came back from the Leafs after the Leafs were eliminated, he stepped in the lineup and Bracco was a healthy scratch, and they never changed their 12 forwards. There was never any injury of the top 12 guys. And they rolled through Syracuse and Lehigh Valley. So they just stayed with the same lineup. But Bracco, I think, is going to be, part of the picture. I mean, he played really well at the end of the season, and they have young guys. I mean, that their fourth line, I think 2 of them could make the NHL in a few years. Mason Marchment, the son of Brian Marchment, really improved over the last year or 18 months. He signed an ELC, and Trevor Moore, who was a University of Denver product, is a really speedy winger. I think those guys could eventually make the Leafs in a year or 2. So, I mean, they're the development model with the Marlies, and they supplemented with veteran guys, and you have to do that. But the core group of that team is youngsters, as opposed to Texas. That was a team of veteran guys, 1 or 2 young guys. And that, I think that speaks to, the positivity of and the enthusiasm of some of the Leaf fans, because there is a lot of talent down there.
Yeah, the best situation is, and I'm sure Russ would agree with this, is the balance. If you can't have all young guys, because then they don't learn and they need those older players to kind of help, and you can't have either all young team or all old team, because then all old team doesn't help you. So it sounds to me like the Maple Leafs try to have a mixture, which is probably good to go.
Yeah, they brought in AHL veteran guys like Chris Mueller and Vincent Laverty, who not too many, not to take away spots. I mean,
right.
But it struck a balance, and Colin Greening, they re-signed him after his contract had expired last year because he was good in the room, a dependable veteran. He played with a couple, they played with Freddie Gauthier and a rookie named Pierre Engvall, who might be a prospect for them. And they mixed the veterans with the youngsters, and it was a good mix. I mean, it's now the thing is, and we'll discover this in the next week or so, is what this will mean for Sheldon Keefe, who now has a Calder Cup title under his belt. The Islanders have not made a decision on a coach. We know that, Eck had reported, and I think it's very possible that DJ Smith, an assistant under Babcock, could be a candidate for the Islanders job. But if they hadn't chosen somebody, they could be waiting for Sheldon Keefe to be able to talk to him before they decide. So it's still up in the air.
Yeah, they were waiting for, one of those guys maybe to shake loose, maybe for Barry Trotz to make a decision.
Right.
So, there is no rush to get this coach now. At this point, they could go through the draft without a coach. It's not going to really matter.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the case when Lamoriello takes over a team, who's coaching is important in terms of recruitment. But in this case,
I'm waiting for him to jump behind the bench, Kev. He's done that before.
Yeah, but he did jump behind the bench. The one thing that was funny about that, Kev, he should have done what Emile Francis did and stand on the bench because, he's not that tall.
The one question is, I've heard the name Scott Stevens be mentioned, and I know that he was an assistant in New Jersey for a while. And we've heard Keefe, we've heard Trotz, what have you heard, Kevin, about the coaching search with the Islanders?
Well, I mean, I had heard actually the same thing Eklund did, that it was going to be Smith. But, I also think that we know that Lou Lamoriello is thorough, and maybe that's his, the clubhouse leader, but maybe he wants to, see if Trotz is going to be available and, make sure he's making the right decision, because obviously this is an important situation. And I think all of his energy right now is in the Tavares signing.
Yeah. And Darren Drager reported yesterday that ever since that meeting that Lou and Tavares had a couple weeks ago, even before it was announced that he was going to be the GM, that Tavares' representatives and the Islanders have had daily contact. So it sounds like they're trying to get it done before the 5-day window. But this is the question I have, and to everybody. If you're him, I mean, unless you're absolutely content about staying with the Islanders, if you're him and you're this close to at least hearing offers, why don't you listen?
Well, there's some logic to that, but and we all sort of know Tavares's personality. Does he seem like a guy that wants to be courted? And to me, that's not his style.
No.
I think if he likes the area and he believes in his teammates, if he thinks Lamoriello is the right guy, it's not. He may look around and just not like his options. Like, where does he really want to go? It's hard to. Everybody thinks, well, you're going to try to pick a better team, but it's hard to do that sometimes.
I do think, Kev, that he does want to be paid similar to his counterparts because he's been underpaid for years.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying if that money is right.
Okay, so let's say this. Here's my devil's advocate point. So they give him a max deal. Does he sign tomorrow?
Well, what do you mean max deal? Do you mean
max deal? That they could give him the absolute maximum deal.
Yeah, because nobody gets the max deal. So
no, he's not in a max deal yet. But if they offer him a max deal, don't you think he would take it tomorrow?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So they're not going to do that.
Yeah, but I guess that's what this is all about. I think if everything is equal, I think he'll stay.
I think it's exciting for him. I mean, at this point, the thing about Lamoriello is he does bring a lot of winning with him. He brings a lot of winning traditions with him.
And it's more than the winning. It's just who he is and the respect and
the gravitas. Yeah.
If John does his homework, and I'm just my limited knowledge of him would suggest that he is that type of guy. Like, he's going to call guys that played for him, and they're going to tell him the same thing, that he's an honorable guy. He treats people fairly. I mean, I remember Zach Parise telling me that he dreaded the call to tell Lamoriello that he was leaving, and Lamoriello's response was he understood completely why he was leaving. That he wanted to go and close to his parents, and going home is a step that he appreciates people wanting to take. And Zach said he made it easy for him. He could have made it hard, but he didn't. And I think those stories have gotten around, and for that reason, I think Tavares can feel pretty strongly that, Lamoriello will treat him fairly and will do everything in his power to make this team better. And boy, I think this is the summer where if you're an aggressive guy like Lamoriello, you can make hay. I mean, despite the fact everyone says there's not a lot out there, if you could get the right guys, boy, you could really help yourself.
Sure. Plus, he's going to look for a lockout-proof deal, Kev, right? Just in case.
Well, yeah, sure, but I'm just saying. I think he wants. I'm sure he wants to be assured that they're going to do all they can to win. And
I mean, every player who's going to get a 6 or 7 or 8 year deal is going to get that 2020 year where it's all signing bonus and no salary. They're going to get that protection, which I think just feeds into the possibility that there will be a lockout because they'll all be comfortable. All the big players will be comfortable getting their money up front.
I think there would be a lockout because that's just the way it goes now in the modern.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit of a lockout.
And the same reason I was on a radio show and they asked me, why don't they open up negotiations now and get it going? Because there's really no reason to.
Yeah, there's no leverage.
And there's no everybody. You need the pressure of the deadline to get it done. That's just the way it works now.
So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at like another half season thing starting in January type thing.
Who knows? But I'm just telling you that that everybody's okay with how it's going now, and they'll get that pressure, and that'll get them going. And then everybody's saying, well, Seattle, they won't want to do that. Yeah, but Gary Bettman's going to look at what's best for the 31 teams, not the one team.
Right. I think the one thing that we can be encouraged about is that the number of issues that are in front of both sides aren't as grandiose as they were the last time. I think, obviously the players don't love escrow. I think that the owners, that there's going to be some. I think the owners have the
done on escrow.
Right. Well.
If you said escarole, Mike, I'm with you. I don't like escarole either.
No, to me, I mean, there's no option beyond escrow.
No. I mean, escrow is just a result of the way the contract is set up. I mean, how do you assure that you get the right percentages without escrow?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if there was going to be, there's only one issue, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. There is one issue that could absolutely could throw everything into chaos.
Guaranteed contract.
Yeah, guaranteed contracts, but that will never happen, right? So
contract length as well. I mean, I think 8 years. They're
going to try to get more. I mean, for sure. They're going to cut the length of contracts. They're going to try to tweak the percentages and. That's just the way it goes, and that's just the modern world.
To me, if I was them, I would. I mean, honestly, and I don't want to talk about this much more because this freaks people out. This whole thing, but I mean, to me, I know. To me, if I'm the players, I'm looking at what they actually call hockey-related revenue. That to me is one of the more interesting things out there. Because there is so much money that comes in different ways to this, but really the little thing is, what people call hockey related revenue. Like what is actually
that's always an issue.
Yeah, it's always an issue. And if I'm an owner, my retort would be, I have to pay all the expenses too. If you want to start paying expenses, we could get more detailed about the.
That's exactly what they say to each other. Because if there's a lockout, the owner still is going to have a lot. I still have a big nut to pay each month to salary people who are here. And if there's lockout protected players,
and the biggest thing is that the players will look at is that 1.15 billion in terms of revenue generated from the two expansion teams. If it's 650 million for Seattle, was 500 million for Vegas, that is not part of hockey related revenue, so they get not even a penny of that.
Yeah. I mean,
should they get a penny of that, Mike?
No, I don't think so, because they're getting jobs out of it. They're getting player salaries out of it. So why?
You know what we have to laugh about now? We all thought the amount for Vegas was sort of ghastly. It was a high amount, whatever. They're probably laughing. They have made so much money this year that they could pay it back in 1 year if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about all of what's happened in last year and this season is we're a copycat league. We always have been. Particularly on the ice. And I think what's happening off the ice as well is going to impact it. I think we're going to see the Stanley Cup Final become a much larger event because of what Nashville and Vegas did. I know there's a segment of the fandom that did not like the pregame build up and the little, theatrics that Vegas goes in. But, what I said is, you know what time the game starts. It's at 8:18. Just tune in then. Because most of us thought it was fun. Like, I was there and I watched it, and what are they going to do tonight? Well, just the little things like, not even announcing, but Gladys Knight coming in and doing something between periods, and the Backstreet Boys ringing the siren, and Wayne Newton just kind of showing up there. And who's the guy that sings the American song?
The Proud to Be American.
There was no announcement of that. He's there. He's up there. He's singing, and you're going like, what the heck?
I know. We had two showbiz cities, like in Nashville. Yeah. People forget that Nashville is a showbiz city. I mean, it knows how to do this. At the All-Star game, the All-Star game in Nashville, I thought was phenomenal. Like, it was just like, I was just this, because remember they had the event the night before with Earth, Wind and Fire, I think it was, and we were out. Yeah. I spent the whole night talking with Tom Fitzgerald that night. Like, it was such a great night, and just the whole thing was. I said, how can anybody? I mean, LA is another city like that.
The problem you run into though, Ak, is if you have a city that's not a showbiz city, it's like, hey, Buffalo, it's the Goo Goo Dolls. And then game 2, hey, it's the Goo Goo Dolls. There's nothing else in Buffalo.
You could do more, but I do want to ask you this, because Mike, you are a card carrying curmudgeon, and because of that, I really want to ask you this. Like, I was amazed at how many people were registering complaints, and by large, I think most people thought it was kind of fun what Vegas was doing. And have people forgotten how to turn off something? Like, why are all these people watching if you don't like it? Like, if I, when I'm watching the Detroit Tigers play, I know there's going to be 10 or 12 minutes of talking, and that the game will start at 7:12.
No, the
talking, so I turn on at 7:12. Like,
the mentality is, Kevin, is that I need to watch and I need to not be bothered. So if you do something that bothers me, I'm gonna be pissed off. And now I was like
to watch though. Why do you need, like, what's the draw to watch something? Do you need to be mad? Is that it? Do you like it?
Not me, because I wasn't. I mean, I didn't have a problem with the show with Vegas. I didn't think. I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine. It didn't bother me at all. So for once I'm
gonna check my text on that. Let me go check my text.
No. I mean, I'm fully confident that I did not vent any frustrations. It was more the friggin' Geico commercials and then the repeated commercials and stuff like that. That were.
Yeah, you know what? It's so funny. I mean, the thing, it's become part. I love, actually, when you're there, it's really cool. And I think that I don't know if any of you remember this concept, but as a child, I remember one time I wrote an essay in like 4th grade about going to the Spectrum, which was like the old Spectrum, and I wrote about I go to the Spectrum for 2 things. I go to the Spectrum to watch the Flyers play, or I go to the Spectrum to see a concert, right? And there were the 2 things. I was going to the same building, just, exactly same building, for 2 different things. And I wrote about the difference in emotion between the 2 things. Like, when you go to a concert, you're going to have a good time. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be exciting. You're going to leave happy for the most part. I mean, maybe your band didn't play a couple songs you wanted to hear, but you're going to have a great time. When you go to a sporting event, I was saying sometimes you leave feeling horrible about it, and it's the difference between that. But what I like about the beginning part is that all the people who paid all this money are in there, and regardless of how the game goes, there's like something that gets the blood going, as they bring the lights down. There's something that like gets the chills going on people, and it's just like, that is what they paid so much money, give them entertainment, because they might not score.
There's another flip to that. Like, I agree with you. But you don't really need that to get going at a Stanley Cup game. It's kind of like when they put up on the scoreboard, it's a clap. You don't have to tell me.
No, that's ridiculous. I agree with you. But you don't need it. But it's like, why not give the people that? Because they are paying for it. I mean, it could come out and their team could like have 3 shots in the first period or whatever. It's like, it could be completely depressing. It could be, but at least for a moment there, before the game starts, there's that. You're paying for that that like fun, that really like this is.
It's a little bit of overkill, but I mean, you can overlook it. And then I'm not full curmudgeon on this. I'm
going to blame Canada on this whole thing, okay? Because
stop.
No, listen for a second. And I mean this in all the my favorite country in the world. I've always said Canada is my favorite country. I mean this in all the politeness and the non-obtrusiveness of Canada it goes along with what people are like. This making a big bombacious thing is not Canadian. So like the whole thing, that's why you haven't seen it in a Canadian city. You won't see
saying there's a particular stuffiness about the
no, it's almost like we're sorry.
It's a cultural thing, yeah.
It's a cultural thing, and it's like their ego. They don't see it like that. That's like an egotistical thing to do.
Yeah,
and I think
they like tradition. They like tradition,
but they're also more humble. So like to do a whole thing of like, but that being said, you use Kevin's favorite expression, which I said Kevin's autobiography will be written, will be titled "That Being Said." That being said, Montreal, they do a pretty good pregame sometimes. In Montreal,
they're the best at ceremonies.
Yeah, they have some good ones, right? So
they're just different. They're just different than a Vegas.
Yeah, they're different.
They're more about tradition. And
yes, it's
right. They're about hockey.
Yeah. My take on it is this: like, I love, and I would have to say I would rate it number one to go to a playoff game in Montreal. Like, you're there the day of the game and everybody's talking about it. And, they're just totally into it. And you can just feel it in the air.
The buzz.
The buzz is just incredible. And you get there.
Lined up for free hot dogs. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just remarkable.
Incredible.
Now, that's completely different. But I also love, the Vegas. Like, there was a buzz in Vegas. Now, it was different. But it was fun there too. Like, I love that every city now is going to be allowed to celebrate in their own way.
Yeah.
And it won't please everybody because for some reason people just get all upset about what they do in their pregame.
Well, I'm not sure if I brought this up the last time you were on, Kevin, but you were talking about this being a copycat league, and let's bring it on the ice. The Capitals win, and I think you have to say that they were sort of not, it's certainly not a throwback, but you had defensive defensemen like Orpik and Niskanen. You had big guys like Wilson and Smith-Pelly, throwing their weight around, which is that's not the trend. That's, speed and it's puck moving defensemen. And do you think that teams are going to start saying, okay, let's go maybe readdress this and maybe go back to that direction because the Capitals won?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the one that was under-publicized about the Capitals team is their hitting ability. Mm-hmm. Like, when you compare the two teams, in the number of hits per player and per game, like the Capitals had 6 players that were up among the leaders. They had Wilson and they had Orpik and even a guy like PJ Oshie, Ovechkin.
Yeah.
These are guys that just bang you away. And Vegas just had McNabb. He was the only guy that was up in terms of the big time hitters. And I thought that was one of the difference in the series. And I do think that you're going to see. I think what will be copied will be the attention to the bottom 6 forwards. Mm-hmm. Because what was different about the 2017-18 Capitals and the 2016-17 Capitals were those bottom 6 players. They changed them all up. They brought in guys, and those guys all performed. Mm-hmm. Devontae Smith-Pelly, obviously was a significant player for them, down the stretch. And all the changes that they did, they changed up a third of their roster, and it made an impact. So
I got up this morning on NHL Radio. They asked me a similar question.
Hold on, Russ, a second. Yes, crazy echo. Sorry, 1 second.
No, try it again, Russ.
Yep, they asked me on NHL Radio a similar question to this, but that goes the same way. And I basically said, I think Tom Wilson did teach a lot of teams that, hey, if there's somebody in the draft, like there are players in this draft, like Andrei Svechnikov may be the greatest skater and offensive player, but he'll also elbow you in the face. So will Oliver Wahlstrom. If you could get guys that have a team toughness and they could still play, like obviously when you put Wilson out there, he's still capable of scoring goals. Teams are now going to look for those players again because I think they did stray away from them, and I think Wilson did show them and Oshie that you need a certain amount of those guys too.
Well, I think what the Capitals' victory brings along, and I heard Ray Ferraro talk about this on the radio yesterday, and I agreed to it to a point. Smith-Pelly was brought in after being bought out, and I think he was brought in on a PTO, and he got signed for less than $1 million. And teams will probably go bargain basement shopping, like we talked about yesterday. He was talking about a guy like Jay Beagle, who would be a good 4th line center for a number of teams. He was mentioning Toronto, but the thing is, he made $1.75 million. If he goes out in free agency and he gets two and a half to $3 million, it's not as much of a bargain anymore. I mean, he's a good player, but it's not just the ability of the player; it's the price point of the player. So I don't know whether that can be repeated. I think teams will look for those bargain basement players, but once they get too expensive, then the benefit is gone.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's Ken Holland always talks about that. All the time about, he would say, now he didn't say this, but, putting words in his mouth, he would say, I love Mike Green at a 2-year deal, but I hate him on a 3-year deal.
Right. That kind of thing.
And I think that's the way you have to sort of view players is, how much do they cost you and whether or not you kind of like them. It just isn't about how they can play, it's how they can sort of fit into your budget. And,
well, I think if you talk about like some of these trades yesterday, I think, Buffalo trading a guy like Hudson Fasching, if he gets a little faster, he can play that Tom Wilson role. I think that's where you're going to look to get some of these guys when you're seeing some of these guys like, the Adam Halukas, guys that just aren't getting a shot in one organization, another organization looks at them and says, we might have a spot for this guy that the other team is not thinking about using the guy for. I think now that's the way you'll get that guy. Well,
and what's interesting is we've reached the point where we are in our parity evolution is that, everybody's got 5 or 6 players. I was listening to the World Cup soccer coverage, and they start out every analysis of every team was like, well, they got 3 or 4 great players. Well, that's how it is in the NHL. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got 3 or 4 really good players, and it's those guys that you fill in, finding the bargains and everything else that sort of define, how much, whether you will be better or not as good as the team. Your division, because everybody's got 3 or 4 great players.
So, no, I don't want to go into the sordid details and the things that are not confirmed, obviously, Kev. But we were talking yesterday about Ottawa and the train wreck that it is right now, and it's my belief, and I want your opinion on it. I think both Hoffman and Karlsson are not going to be there when they open training camp in September. I mean, the problem with Hoffman right now is with the allegations of his fiance hanging over his head. A lot of former players I've heard talk about this and say, who would want that guy with this hanging over his head coming into the room? But to my mind, Karlsson, I don't know why he would want to go back to Ottawa. What are your thoughts on this?
Completely agree. I have 2 thoughts about that. First of all, just that both players have to be gone now. It doesn't matter whether you wanted to keep Karlsson or not. I think it's just too hard. And the second thing is, I think this is an indictment on the Ottawa Senators. And the reason why I say that on the organization is, and I have run this theory by a general manager who agreed with me. Teams always know what's going on within the locker room. They always know. Karlsson mentioned something to his best friend. The wives talk. The management is tight with the trainers. The trainers always know every bit of gossip that's going on with the team. They knew this was going on. The fact that it was allowed to go on and we've reached this point is beyond belief. That at some point there should have been a meeting about this. Everyone should have been brought in. Every team has security now. Right. Like every team has a guy who's in charge of this. This should have never have gone on this long. And for Erik Karlsson to be subjected to this and his wife without somebody stepping in and intervening and getting to the bottom of this, I can't understand that. Now, I would love to hear maybe the Senators got a logical explanation for this, and but I don't know what it would be, because if you did know about it, then you've got another major problem. That means you're not in touch with your team.
Right.
And if you did, why didn't anybody try to do anything about it? Because it shouldn't have gotten to this point. So I don't know what it says about the Senators, but it's nothing good. And I agree that it would be best for all parties that everybody moves on. And I don't know whether Hoffman's fiance was involved in this. I have no idea. Right. But it doesn't matter at this point. I think
it really doesn't, unfortunately. And I think you're right. I mean, I think you're right about the Senators, but I don't think I think they're the team that got caught. I think a lot of teams are ignoring things like this more, and I think this will open up.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like this is something so major that I just can't imagine the other teams not dealing with that.
I mean, nothing to this level, Kevin, but there are things all the time, right? And I mean, I've heard of girlfriends fighting with other girlfriends and stuff like that, you know, and stuff that goes on.
That's not the same as this. Like that happens all the time. That's part and parcel of life in the dressing room.
Well,
right,
I think,
but they don't pay attention to it. You know what I mean? And they don't, and they often there's this whole thing that's like, they're just the women fighting or whatever. And I think now they're going to pay attention to it.
Well, I still think this is at another level. So
it is
right. I think the one thing that we're learning is that, you know, some of these NHL teams are not up, that they're sort of ignorant about the impact of social media, that, you know, there's been incidents with other teams where I think they don't realize what's going on, the interaction between players and fans and how ugly it can get. And, you know, burner accounts, obviously the whole Colangelo thing that happened a few weeks ago. Now it's sort of snowballing, but I'm just to bring it back to hockey. I'd hate to be Pierre Dorian, Kevin, because now, okay, he's undercut in terms of his any kind of leverage in terms of a Hoffman deal, and teams probably know now he'll get value because there'll be a ridiculous market for Karlsson, so he'll get value. But what I asked yesterday, he has no obligation to let another team know that this stuff is going on. Like if a team was interested in Hoffman, does he? I don't believe he has an obligation to tell the other general manager, oh, by the way, this is going on with Hoffman. Am I right? He doesn't have an obligation to
say that. I mean, no, yeah,
he doesn't have any obligation. I mean, teams should do their homework, right? But they don't.
But how are they going to know inside another team's locker room that this is going on? I mean, that's the problem.
It's clear yesterday. Speaking of social media, there were people's reactions, you know, siding with Karlsson on this from within the room. It was pretty clear that the players and their wives knew about it. So.
Yeah, I was told yesterday, and this will probably come out soon. You know, and Dunphy said, was it Dunphy who said?
James Duthie, yeah.
James Duthie said they thought there was more to it. I looked into that a little bit. You know, and I heard there was Snapchat stuff that, you know how Snapchat works is different, right? So that's so there's Snapchat stuff that, you know, if someone sends you a snap, it's gone in 24 hours, but you can record it. You can easily. There's other stuff that you know has been turned over basically as evidence that it goes far deeper than this that is on Snapchat. So you have to be really careful. Snapchat is really evil for people. It is.
I'm old, so I don't know how.
I mean, if you have kids on Snapchat. I mean, my daughter tells me that, you know, she knows more people who have, you know, gotten in fights, broken up, cheated on people on Snapchat. She's like, it's incredible. Like, you know, she said, Snapchat.
I was on it for a short time. I didn't enjoy it, so I left.
Yeah, it's really rough.
Snapchat was actually banned by the U.S. National Development Team for a short period of time. Not anymore.
I don't need to put dog ears and a nose on myself.
That's not what it's about, though. It's about.
I know it.
It's mostly. It doesn't in the early years, wasn't it a sexting type?
Well, it is. That's why the whole idea of something disappearing after 24 hours. You know, like you can put something on there and it's gone, but now then Snapchat built into it a way to save things. You know, so you can save something on your or you can just do a screenshot of your phone. You know how to do that too. You can. So there's all different kinds of things. So yeah, so nothing's like I've talked to my kids' high school about this. I've had different discussions about social media for a couple of years now. Anything that goes online, expect it to be public. That's the bottom line. Like anything you put anywhere, if you're sending it private, even a private email to a friend, be okay with it going public because it might go public, and you just have to have that in your head. You know, you can't ever say anything.
Let me bring up one because we rarely ever talk about anything good about social media, but I'm going to talk about social media. But I want to start out by something bad about social media. And I just another observation. We talked about this before, but you know, because I'm fresh from the Stanley Cup final, and I was looking for this because I read with great interest the NBA's discussion over their concern about what's happening at their games and how so many people are on their phones, and you know how they're going to address that. And there's a great fear among folks in the NBA that at some point, when you're paying so much money for tickets, you're going to say, why would you do that? Because, you know, we're not paying attention anyway. We're on our phones. We're just raising up when somebody cheers. Now, saying all that, watching that, you know, and we've commented before about how many people we see in the fans that are doing that. But I was at the final, and we all know how much it costs for the final.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I looked over the press box, and I tried to watch. I just wanted to see it for a short period of time because I didn't want to disrupt my own viewing of the game. But I watched just enough to know that even in the Stanley Cup final, I saw so many people that just were staring down at their phones and then would rise up when something happened, just as if they saw it on. They saw none of it.
Well, I have a 16-year-old daughter. So let me discuss this for a second because she's the prime age for this, right? Like, and I know that a lot of older people are on their phones too, but I don't think the NBA has to worry about anything, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. Because I many times, last night we watched the movie Garden State here, which is what I've talked about before. It's like my favorite movie ever. It's a great movie, Garden State. And I wanted to show it to my daughter. She's finally old enough, I think, to see it. So I showed it. So my wife and I showed it to her last night. Mike, get off your phone, you jerk. So we're sitting here watching it, and there were some really great scenes in it. And I would see her once in a while just pick up her phone and send something. And I'm like, put your phone down. I want you to watch. You have to watch this movie. Momentous occasion you're watching this. And I've been in this situation many times, and I'm amazed. Like, she's like, what? So I just let her go one time. I let her text. She was wait for like 3 minutes during this thing. Movie's going on, and it stopped. And I paused the movie, and I'm like, okay, tell me what just happened. She put her phone down, like, tell me what just happened. And she told me exactly what just happened. Every line of dialogue, the entire thing about it. And she had been on her phone for 3 minutes.
Usually I fail when my wife asks me that.
It's
unbelievable. It's just like, it makes me crazy because I'm thinking that, you think if someone started doing something when you were talking to them in the past, you'd be like, what's going on?
We've raised a generation of multitaskers.
Oh my gosh. It's incredible.
But I think I would not say the NBA is not in trouble because of this. I noticed online for the last week or two, I had just caught conversations because I had definitely some followers that are younger than me and vice versa. And what I noticed was, like, as an example for a bar, I noticed people were like, why should I even go to a bar now and spend, I don't know, $10 a drink? I could just do it at home and stay on my phone. And actually, there is a lot to that. And I think unless you crave human contact or you crave the excitement, or if the NBA doesn't keep their games exciting, they will start to lose people.
What are they doing on their phones? I mean, they are usually doing something about the game, like they're texting or tweeting out something about the game.
No.
Not always, but I've found that, I've talked to you about this. Not always.
They're texting about plans after the game or things that are
for sure true, but I mean,
but videos of goofy cats to their guys.
Right. But this is the thing, and it's funny that Russ mentions like a bar, because places that I've gone to and I'm hanging out with friends, they want to leave a place if the Wi-Fi or if the reception is not good and the Wi-Fi is terrible. And I'm thinking, well, NHL, because like there's public Wi-Fi in Buffalo, there's public Wi-Fi in Toronto. Will they start not offering that because they want people to actually pay attention to the game? I think it'll piss people off that they'll leave early rather than not. Yeah.
I don't think you can put it back in.
That was a major issue. But anyway, let's talk about one good thing about it. And and that is the coverage of the Washington Capitals celebration.
Yeah.
I thought that just really sort of brought the cup to the people. Our office of USA Today is located outside of Washington, D.C. And I used to, and I got so many reports from people in the office of, the cup was here, the cup was there. And I talked to Phil Pritchard of the Hockey Hall of Fame, and he was saying that this year it reached the point where they were taking the cup to a place in Georgetown, which is a trendy area by the college. And he said before we even got there, word had just spread so dramatically through social media. And I thought that was so fun to follow the extraordinary celebration.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved what Ovechkin did. He basically took it to the people. It was about the people.
His thing was incredible. I mean, what he did was just, it was beyond, joy. It was just a great thing. And there's so many, and
videos in my house every day.
Well, what I want to know is, was Phil Pritchard the one who took the picture of the cup with Ovechkin and his wife, or I think it was his wife, and because
no.
Well, I know Phil told me that he went back after they landed. They wanted to take photos. Ovechkin wanted to take photos at home, and he went there and he took a photo with him and his dog in the cup, and him and his wife and all that. So I think the answer would be yes.
It's pretty amazing.
I thought the best one, Kev, was a fan took a picture at the Nationals game, and it was in the middle of the inning, and Ovechkin is in the second deck in left field from far away, and you just see this guy holding this big silver thing, and he's like this big, but you know it's him, and you know it's the cup. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, the other thing they did, which I thought was really cool, and I know Pritchard thought it was too. I'm actually writing about this as soon as I get off this, but they took it to both rooms. They didn't just take it to the.
Oh, really?
They took it to the. I think they were playing San Francisco then, and they took it to the. Cool. To both rooms, and the other, the guys in the other team really appreciated that. So, but what a great. The other thing I would just bring up, just because I got a little bit of "I told you so" on it, because it was you'll forget now, but you'll never get them done, and this is what they could get for him, and this is the teams that he would really fit in well, and should the Oilers go after him, and the Maple Leafs, and what happened? Said publicly that he could sign them, and people doubted it because they were the Coyotes.
And I'll be the bitterman and the curmudgeon here. It's like, and I said it when we got the news, is that he took less money for the no move clause. He must be comfortable with good weather, golf, and a team that has not proved to this point, except for 1 year when they got to the conference final, that they can win. Now, if they, if he's comfortable with that and if they improve, then this is a good deal. But I mean, my criticism was, doesn't he ever want to win? And sometimes that's not the biggest priority for a player. And maybe he thinks that they eventually will win. There's a lot of talent there. I agree with that, but I just don't understand the mentality of a player who doesn't want to at least test the market and see where he wants to go. But if he wants to stay there, this is a great deal for him.
I don't think you could have more correctly represented his position than you did. Like just what you said about him really, basically what I was told was he wanted to stay because he loved his teammates. Mm-hmm. He felt that he could play a major role in helping that team finally dig out. Right. And he loved the area. I never heard any mention of golf. I never heard any mention of the weather, and I never heard any mention of his belief that he didn't care about winning.
I mean, I'm using it as sarcasm, Kev. I mean, I'm just saying, but
I think you can't just say because he's with a poor team that he doesn't want to win. And I don't know that he took less. Like, what has he accomplished that you think you should did you think you should be a $9 million or a $10 million guy?
I thought if he would have gotten to the free market, that he probably would have been able to get that. Like I think John Carlson is probably going to get over 8 because he's a UFA. Now, if he gets that from Washington, then that's great. If he doesn't, I think he'll get it from a team that's desperate for a top pairing defenseman. But if Ekman-Larsson had put himself out on the market with, because Doughty is probably going to re-sign, and I think if Carlson gets traded, a team is going to probably try to re-sign him or get him re-signed, that Ekman-Larsson probably would have been the only one of the big 3 that would have got there, but he wanted to stay in Arizona, and I don't begrudge him that. If that's what he wants, that's what he wants. I just, I just think, to say he doesn't want to win because he re-signed there, I just think that's, it's said about Matt Sundin, he didn't want to win for the cup. He didn't want to go for the cup. Remember when he wouldn't, and he just liked playing there. And I just think sometimes there are other reasons. I think the word right that you had right was the comfort. I think he did feel comfortable there. I think he really enjoyed the guys he played with. Right. And you know what, could have screwed up the whole situation is just the unknown of, are they going to make it there? There's no arena. That was a major issue. That was the concern that they had. But I thought the money, just the way I saw it, I thought Ekman-Larsson was going to be in the 8s. I thought Carlson would be in the 9s, and I thought Erik Karlsson will be over 10. So John Carlson would be in the 9s, Ekman-Larsson would be in the 8s, and Erik Karlsson will be over 10. That's how I viewed it.
That makes sense.
I will now ask the question that I ask every year when Kevin is on the week before the draft. How busy do you think the trade market will be? Because
I expect there'll be a lot of guys traded. There has been a lot of discussion. I listed all the guys that I felt could be traded. There's no doubt that the Carolina Hurricanes are going to be a very big mover and shaker. They want to disrupt the team. I just quoted Don Waddell, and I think this is a reflection of the new ownership, that we've missed the playoffs for 9 years. And, we've had some of the same players for 5 or 6 years. What he didn't say, but was, implicit in between the lines is, this hasn't worked like this. Why wouldn't we disrupt it? Right. I would expect, he didn't name any names, but, we'll see Skinner moved for sure. And I don't think it was their plan to move Hannafin. I think they thought they were going to move Falk. But now I think the offers, from what I've been hearing, from one of the persons who actually made an offer, the offers for Hannafin are really good.
You would expect them to be.
So
he's a better defender than Falk. That's why.
So anyway, they might end up moving Hannafin. I don't think that was their intention, but they may do that.
We all kind of thought that might happen though, because Falk he had a bad year. His defense has gone down, and he makes a little bit of money. Hannafin, you could set the price.
Well, yeah, and Hannafin's up on the, he's going to get better. His best years are ahead of him. So,
sure.
That's a tough call, because, I think their thought is, well, maybe they can get the forward version of Hannafin. If they can get a young forward who can do that. But, to me, a young defenseman who's talented is harder to find than a.
Yeah, but they're so deep on the blue line, Cap. That's the thing. It's like I think it's been the general opinion that they need scoring. I mean, ideally, I think they would love to get a center for Hannafin, but it's even tougher to get a center than it is a defenseman.
What's interesting about that is I would agree with you on that, but I asked Don Waddell about whether center was his priority, and they think they're okay. Nescast, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, Neckish, yeah.
Yeah, he is a center, and he's going to play.
Yep.
Aho and Stahl.
They're going to move Aho back to center where he started, and Stahl. And
that's pretty good.
So they think they're all right. Now,
they'll be fine with that.
Yeah,
they need snipers. They need snipers.
And they're he basically said Nakash and he didn't say who, but Svechnikov, I would have guessed, will move right into the lineup next year. So, the priority for them,
more scoring than that, though. That's not guaranteed scoring,
No, that's right. But the big priority for them is goal. There's no question. And, it's not a great field of available goalies.
No.
One guy that everybody wants to trade for, and Grubauer, and there seems to be one free agent that everybody wants, and that's Carter Hutton.
Yeah.
The famous Carter Hutton.
Yes, I love Carter.
HockeyBuzz's favorite goalie.
Yeah, they built up his value. Hey, Eck, I want to mention a prospect real quick.
Please do.
On sportsology.com, I just wrote about Jet Wu. He there's a couple things that are interesting about him. I think he'll be a first round. He'll be the highest drafted person of Chinese descent ever in the NHL. I still didn't make that the focus of the article. I just think that's a cool side thing. But this kid, he had an injury this year, but he's a really good defenseman. He's 6'2", 205. He can skate. He's got power. He plays on the power play. He's got a great shot from the point. He definitely has to prove a little defensively, but this kid is also very mature. He's got like this Zen-like attitude. I think he'll go somewhere in the bottom 20s, and I think somebody will get a really good defenseman here, because I think if he'd have played better in the second half in the playoffs, he would be like in the top 15 to 20. So I think someone will get a little bit of a discount on this kid, but he is a piece of work in the very best way. Like, he is really a fun guy, and so people should check him out.
What position does he play?
Defense, I said.
Defender. Okay, I missed it. Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So check it out. And make sure you check out sportsology.com for all of Russ's stuff, and make sure you check out USA Today, obviously, and this is the time you need to be following @by Kevin Allen if you weren't already following it. This time of year, you absolutely should be. But yeah, this is the time. This is the time.
And we have, I will say this, we have our 4-hour draft special starting, I think, tonight in Vancouver, and then tomorrow for the next really week. You'll hear it in a lot of places, TSM Market and Sirius, and John Shannon will be sick of it, and so
we'll hear it all day long.
I'm going to be sick of it.
For X Addict, I have a little quick X Addict today. So this picture that was sent to me, and I from somebody saw it on Reddit, of the Joe Louis Arena as the seats are being removed, to sell them, to sell the seats. I wondered if any of you guys owned any seats from any place.
I never ever bought. I'm still waiting for the Mets to give that bargain basement price, because I know they're sitting in a warehouse, because they decided at one point they would charge. I believe when City closed, they wanted to charge like $1,999. I never bought it at that, because I said they could sit with them in a warehouse forever, as far as I'm concerned, and someday they'll sell them for a lot less.
Yeah, like actually, if you go on, you'd be surprised if you go on eBay, you can actually get pretty good deals on these. eBay usually is a good place to find seats. You don't own any seats, do you, Kevin?
Where at now?
You own any seats from any old stadiums?
No, I do not. No.
Yeah, I mean, I own one. So here's mine. Okay, so I'm going to show you mine here. And this is this I picked up when they opened up the Spectrum and said you come in and just take whatever's left. So this is not one of the seats that was actually. This is a seat from the Spectrum. So this is it right here. I can show you this. So this is those of you who, sorry, it's a little hard to hold. This is seat number 7, obviously. But yeah, this is what this is these are the seats that were on the floor when they would have a concert, right? So they would put the floor seats down, for rows along the ice for concerts. So you probably stood on one of these if you were in the Philadelphia area at some point.
That's also the seat that Ric Flair hit Greg the Hammer Valentine over the head with. Probably.
No, much thinner weight than that. That was
Core States Complex.
Yeah.
Remember the arena?
Core States. Oh yeah.
This was there's a whole Core States. Originally it was a Core State Spectrum, and the Core State arena was the Wells Fargo Arena originally.
They sold a whole bunch of the seats from the Memorial Auditorium in Buffalo, and that is a building I saw my first concert, my first hockey game. The problem is that the seats at the Aud were the most uncomfortable seats in the world, and they were painted over. Like they had them painted over. They were wooden seats with metal sides and metal hinges, and painted like blue, dark blue or orange, with layers, so many layers of paint on them that it was just, it made no sense to buy them, so I just didn't. Yeah, no, I know. They're out there, and so I guess the Joe Louis, obviously you can get them now, but it's kind of must be kind of funky to see these old arenas as they're being torn down. I guess they're going to implode Joe Louis Arena eventually, Kevin, are they? Yeah, no, there's going to be a hotel there, and the city of Detroit's going through a real renaissance, and all the arenas, the Little Caesars Arena, Ford Field, and Comerica Park are all within a block of each other. So it's similar to Philadelphia. But in this case,
it's good. I like the setup down there. I did.
Yeah, it is. And what's different about Philadelphia is there's a lot. There's a area like a night life area there that there's a lot of restaurants and things. It's not the same as where it's just nothing but parking lots and arenas out in Philly. Yeah, for sure. That's what we have. All right. Well, thanks, Kevin, so much. Have a great weekend. Remember, without the buzz, folks, it's just hockey. We will talk to you Monday.